No one on Cythera ever forgot the moment the shadow fell.
It began as an eclipse, blotting out the bright, gold-green sun that bathed the sprawling orbital trade rings. At first, dock controllers thought it was some kind of freighter convoy moving in formation, a trick of the light, maybe a station glitch. But then the shape clarified, emerging from the warped ripple of hyperspace like a predator slipping through still water. It was massive. Too massive. 14 kilometers from prow to stern, the vessel's silhouette bristled with armor plating the color of midnight.
Rows upon rows of turreted cannons rotated into position like the flexing of a muscle. Along its sides, missile silos yawned open, their warheads glinting like rows of teeth. There was no decoration, no elegance, just a block of pure function. The galaxy loved sleek ships, elegant curves, shimmering shields. This was a warhammer forged into a ship's hull. The humans called it UNS Colossus. The Galactic Council's envoy station immediately began broadcasting.
Unknown vessel, identify yourself and state your intentions.
You are entering a neutral trade zone under Concord jurisdiction. The Colossus didn't answer.
From the control room of the Cythera orbital hub, Overseer Tilrex watched with narrowing eyes. Ships in every orbit path were already scattering, cargo haulers disengaging docking clamps, civilian shuttles darting for cover behind moons and stations. Even the seasoned hauler captains, the ones who laughed at pirate threats, were gone within minutes. It wasn't just the size. It was the silence. A ship that large could not simply pass through unnoticed. It was here for something. The answer came 6 minutes later, when the Colossus finally transmitted, not to the Concorde, not to the Orbital Authority, but directly to a private channel used by planetary mercenary clans. It was one sentence. Release the human research team you hold on Cythera, or be removed. In a safehouse deep within Cythera's lower districts, a mercenary named Can spat his drink across the table.
Humans, he laughed, turning to his crew. They send a city to rescue a dozen scientists? Who does that? His lieutenant snorted. They're bluffing. No species sends a warship into Council space just for a hostage grab. The Concorde would never. The rest of his words drowned under the roar of atmosphere as the Colossus fired its first shot. It was a kinetic rod, a tungsten cylinder the size of a bus, dropped from orbit at near relativistic speed. It struck the mercenary airfield outside Cythera City. No explosion, no fireball, just a blinding flash, a shockwave that rolled through the atmosphere, and then a crater 500 meters wide where the field had been. Can stopped laughing. From orbit, it looked like precision surgery. The Colossus never hit civilian targets. Every kinetic strike, every plasma barrage, was aimed with terrifying accuracy. Mercenary gun towers melted to slag, militia aircraft burned from the skies before they left hangars. Then came the drones. Thousands of them, darting silver specks, fanning out from the Colossus like a living cloud. Each drone carried pinpoint weapons, disabling enemy vehicles and locking down streets. They moved too fast for Cythera's defense AI to track. In under an hour, every major mercenary stronghold in the northern hemisphere was rubble. The Concorde fleet scrambled from a nearby system, but when they arrived and saw the targeting telemetry, they didn't dare fire. Not one civilian casualty had been recorded. The Colossus was executing a rescue operation with the cold precision of a surgeon and the overwhelming force of a god. In the orbital hub, Overseer Tilrex found himself staring at the tactical feed. They're holding back, he muttered. His second officer gave him a strange look. Holding back? They just destroyed 32 fortified installations in 47 minutes. Yes, Tilrex said slowly. And they could have done it in 10. On the ground, the last of the mercenaries were in full retreat, scattering into the jungle. Ken's crew never made it. Their safehouse door blew inward, and a squad of human marines stormed in, faces hidden behind matte black visors, weapons glowing with heat dispersal vents. Ken raised his hands. We surrender. The lead marine's voice was calm but utterly devoid of mercy. You had your chance 3 hours ago. When the scientists were finally extracted, shaken but alive, the Colossus began to retract its drones. The ship hovered in geostationary orbit, still ignoring all Concorde hails. Finally,
after the last drop shuttle docked and the hangar bays sealed, the Colossus opened a channel to the Galactic Council's main frequency. Every major hub in Council space heard the same voice.
The hostages are safe. The threat is neutralized. Humanity does not tolerate the kidnapping or sale of our citizens. This is your only warning.
There was a pause, long enough for every diplomat in the galaxy to lean forward.
Then the voice added, "Now, we can talk." In the council chambers light years away, representatives exchanged glances.
First contact had arrived not in the form of a handshake, not as a polite meeting between envoys, but as the shadow of a colossal warship blotting out the sun of a neutral world.
The message was unmistakable.
Humanity had come to the galactic stage. And they had led with the hammer. The Helios system had always been quiet. It was a border sector under the Varelian dominion, far from the core worlds, far from major trade routes, just a sleepy cluster of 2 habitable planets, a gas giant with mining stations, and a small garrison fleet that saw more rust than action.
Which is why no one paid much attention to the first anomaly.
At the edge of the system, mining drones in the gas giant's upper atmosphere began transmitting distorted readings, gravitational fluctuations, strange mass signatures.
Varelian technicians assumed it was a sensor fault.
After all, nothing large enough to cause such disturbances could slip past Dominion patrol arrays.
But then, the shadows began.
Cargo haulers inbound from the outer asteroid belts reported the light from Helios Prime's sun dimming for seconds at a time, as if something impossibly large was moving between them and the star.
By the time the system's main observatory locked onto the source, the truth hit like a pulse shock. It wasn't an asteroid. It was a ship. At first, the Varelians thought their scope calibration was wrong.
The object was colossal, a moving fortress, plated in overlapping armor slabs, each one larger than a Dominion frigate. Its outline was blocky, functional, with none of the ornamentation or curved elegance common to Dominion designs. It gave no transponder signal, no identification, no hail response.
It simply advanced. The closer it came, the more details emerged: vast spinal cannons that stretched the length of city districts, rows of missile bays recessed into its hull, hangar doors big enough to swallow corvettes whole.
Its sheer mass disrupted local calms. In the command spire of Helios Prime's orbital defense ring, Fleet Commander Varen stared at the tactical display.
"That's no civilian ship," he muttered.
"Shall I send the challenge hail again, Commander?" his comms officer asked.
"Send it," Varen replied. The hail went unanswered.
In the mining colonies, rumors began to spread.
Some said it was a Dominion dreadnought prototype. Others whispered of a rogue AI warship gone feral.
But there were a few spacers who'd traveled far, seen strange flags, who muttered a word many had never heard.
Human. It was the Titan-class UNS Behemoth.
And it was here for blood. The Behemoth's mission was simple: recover 1,200 human colonists stolen from the frontier world of New Perth, who'd been sold into indentured labor by Varelian slavers operating out of Helios Prime.
The humans had sent warnings. They'd filed formal protests to the Dominion.
They'd appealed to the Galactic Concord.
No one had acted.
So they sent the Behemoth. The Varelian garrison assembled its defense fleet, 12 frigates, 4 destroyers, and a single aging battlecruiser. They formed a defensive screen near the orbital trade station, confident in their numbers and home field advantage.
The Behemoth didn't even slow down.
At 50,000 kilometers, its spinal railguns lit up, 3 brilliant spears of tungsten slugs fired at fractions of light speed. The first ripped the battlecruiser in half. The second and third passed clean through 2 destroyers, punching holes so precise they drifted apart in silence before exploding.
The frigates panicked. Half broke formation, trying to scatter into the planet's shadow.
The Behemoth's automated targeting arrays swiveled and fired in sequence, each shot vaporizing a fleeing vessel in a flash of superheated metal.
By the time the Varelian commander ordered a retreat, the battle had lasted just 4 minutes.
From the surface of Helios Prime, civilians watched in stunned silence as the Behemoth drew closer.
Its bulk eclipsed the sun for entire city blocks.
It didn't just pass overhead, it hovered, casting a rectangular shadow so vast it turned midday into twilight.
And then the drop pods began to fall. Each pod carried a squad of human marines, armored in black and steel exosuits. They hit the surface like meteor strikes, walls of dust rising in their wake. The Varelian Planetary Guard tried to respond, but the Marines moved with ruthless efficiency, breaching slave camps, securing transport yards, cutting through fortified gates as if they were made of foil. Inside the camps, the enslaved humans stared in disbelief at their rescuers. Many hadn't seen another free human in years. The Marines didn't waste time with speeches. "You're going home," was all they said. Back in orbit, the behemoth loomed silent, its weapons still hot. It ignored every new hail from the Dominion's regional command. It didn't threaten the planet's cities, didn't fire on civilian stations. Its actions were terrifyingly precise, only slaver infrastructure was erased. But the message was clear to everyone watching the system's calm feeds: humanity had weapons beyond Dominion understanding, and they were not afraid to cross borders to use them. When the last slave transport lifted off from Helios Prime, the behemoth turned away without ceremony. It did not demand tribute. It did not request diplomatic talks. Only once the ship was already accelerating toward deep space did it broadcast a single statement on all public channels. To the Dominion, the taking of human lives will be met with overwhelming force. You are advised to remember Helios. For weeks afterward, Helios system newsfeeds replayed shaky footage of the behemoth's shadow sweeping over cities, of the garrison fleet dying in flashes of light, of the precision orbital strikes that shattered fortress walls without touching civilian housing. The Dominion declared outrage at the unprovoked violation of sovereign space. But in the frontier worlds, the story spread differently, as a promise. The humans were out there now. And they were not asking for permission. The Galactic Concord Senate was in full session when the universe tore open. In the Grand Chamber of Celesta Prime, representatives argued over tariffs and mining rights, their voices echoing beneath the dome of crystal and gold. Senators gestured, wings and frills twitching in agitation, holographic charts flickering between desks. It was politics as usual until the chamber's light dimmed. Not the lights in the room. The sun. From the observation spires ringing the capital city, citizens looked up and froze. Above the blue-green sky, space itself seemed to ripple like heat haze, only impossibly vast. Then the ripple split. It was not a smooth opening, not like the graceful arcs of Concord slipgates. This was a tear in reality, jagged and violent, and something was pushing through. First came a proud blunt, plated in armor so black it devoured the light. Then came the rest, kilometer after kilometer of angular, brutal geometry. Massive turreted batteries rotated along its flanks. Missile ports gaped open like yawning maws. It radiated no identification signal, no diplomatic beacon, only a low, rumbling hum that carried through the planet's atmosphere. The UNS Leviathan had arrived. In the Senate chamber, the noise of debate dissolved into stunned silence. The high speaker's frills flattened in alarm as aides scrambled to bring up the intruder's profile. None of their databases had an exact match. Unknown vessel, the Planetary Defense Network broadcast, you are entering a Concord core world. State your. The Leviathan's reply wasn't a greeting. It was a projection. A massive hologram lit up in orbit, visible from the ground, a compiled dossier of war crimes committed by the Concord's allied pirate clans. Dates. Names. Locations. Cargo manifests. Captured images of human bodies in chains. And below the dossier, a countdown timer. 20 minutes. Panic rippled through the Senate. "This is extortion," one delegate screeched. "Those records could be fabricated," another argued. "Where is our fleet?" the high speaker demanded. In orbit, the defense ships scrambled from their berths, forming a perimeter around Celesta Prime. There were dozens of them, fast, shielded, and bristling with energy cannons. Against any known enemy, they would have been more than enough. But the Leviathan didn't move. It simply watched. On the ground, civilians flooded the streets, staring up at the black silhouette blotting out half the sky. The timer ticked down. 15 minutes. Within the Leviathan's command deck,
Captain Ilara Voss stood at the forward viewport, hands clasped behind her back. Her voice was calm, almost detached. Target lock on pirate fleets and associated shipyards only.
Civilian structures remain off-limits.
Her gunnery chief gave a tight nod.
Coordinates locked. Weapons at the ready. 10 minutes.
The Concorde fleet commander, Admiral Siren, opened a direct channel.
This is an act of aggression against the Concorde. If you fire on us, you will.
You've already fired on us, Voss interrupted, her voice carrying the weight of a cold fact. Not with your guns, but with your silence.
Your allies preyed on our worlds. You did nothing. 5 minutes. Crowds were now kneeling in the streets, praying to their respective deities. Newsfeeds broadcast the timer across the galaxy.
The Concorde High Council convened an emergency vote, but they were out of time.
0.
The Leviathan struck.
Its spinal railguns boomed, the sound transmitted through the planet's atmosphere like distant thunder.
From orbit, the Concorde fleets guarding the pirate shipyards didn't even have time to react, their hulls split cleanly under tungsten slugs traveling at a fraction of light speed. Precision missiles streaked toward hidden docking facilities, annihilating them in blossoms of white fire. Pirate fleets, hundreds of vessels, died in synchronized flashes as the Leviathan's targeting AI swept through them like a scythe.
It was over in less than 2 minutes.
From the capital city, civilians watched as the orbital horizon lit up with streaks of flame. Yet no explosions touched the planet itself. The Leviathan's aim had been terrifyingly exact. When the last hostile blip winked off the tactical map, the Leviathan went silent again. Then, across every channel in the system, came a single transmission, a woman's voice, measured and unshaken. Diplomacy begins with trust. We have removed those unworthy of it. In the Senate chamber, the High Speaker could only stare at the live feed of the Black warship. The Concorde had seen powerful ships before. They had seen brutal weapons. But they had never seen restraint on this scale, the ability to obliterate fleets without even grazing a city.
It was a message. Not of mercy. Of control. The Leviathan didn't ask for terms. It didn't demand tribute. It didn't even request recognition.
It simply turned away, folding back into the jagged tear from which it had come.
The sky stitched itself closed behind it. The galaxy would spend years debating the event. Concorde loyalists called it terrorism.
Frontier worlds called it justice. But everyone, ally, enemy, or neutral, remembered the day the sky split and the Black Leviathan came through.
For some, it was a warning.
For others, it was a promise.